Hey little troublemakers, it's Eddie and today I am back with another movie review for you all. So today's movie is a movie that was included in last week's top 10 favourite movies of all time list, and it's a fantastic film by Quentin Tarantino, one of his more recent masterpieces, and it is of course Django Unchained. Now I absolutely love this film and I'm really excited to be doing this review for you all today. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, I won't give any spoilers in this video because I think that this is definitely a film that you need to go into without any idea of, spoilers or any sort of parts in the movie that are really important, because there's a lot of moments in the film that you need to experience firsthand, because they bring a lot of shock factor. And I think the great thing about this film is that you become so invested in it, and I think that if those moments, those really important moments in the film are spoiled for you guys, then you won't enjoy it as much. So there'll be no spoilers in this video, but I will just tell you that it is about a slave called Django, obviously, who is befriended kind of by a man called Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz. Django is played, of course, by Jamie Foxx brilliantly, and the two sort of work together, and we find out that although Dr. King Schultz used to be a dentist, he is now a bounty hunter, and he sort of uses or sort of employs Django to help him in his line of work, by allowing him to assist him in the murders of three brothers, the Brittle brothers, whom Django used to be a slave at the plantation where they worked. And in doing so, Django also hopes to find and free his wife, Brunhilde, and it's just, I won't tell you any more than that, but it's not an easy journey for the two of them. And of course it is set, I should have said, in 19th century America, 2 years I think before the Civil War. Tarantino has tended to devolve into looking at more historical settings for his movies nowadays. We've seen sort of Inglourious Basterds with the World War II setting, and The Hateful Eight with the sort of Western aspect. And it's the same again for Django, but we get more of a deeper look with Django into the sort of history of slavery in America. And I think what is so brilliant about this film is not only the Quentin Tarantino classics like the dialogue, which is always on point, and the sort of, fantastic characters, it's also the morals behind this film. Now, you might not expect a lot of, morals from a Quentin Tarantino film that is indeed full of blood and gore and shootouts and all of that kind of stuff. But Quentin Tarantino does well in showing that these sort of oppressors, so the sort of white slave owners in this film, are complete and utter idiots. And I think the best example of this is a scene involving Don Johnson, who is the slave owner Big Daddy, and his pack of Ku Klux Klan members. I won't say anything more about this scene, but you'll know it when you come across it in the film. But the comedy element, which you might not expect to be sort of involved in this film or in this scene, Quentin Tarantino employs specifically to highlight the absolute idiocy of these people, these supremacists, and it's so wonderful to watch. And I think it just casts another light on things. Obviously, I don't think any of Quentin's films set in the past are meant to be historically accurate, and I think I know that a lot of people have problems with the finer details of this film. Some sort of areas such as weaponry and costume might not be totally accurate for the time, but I think we can sort of get past it because the film is so rich with, you know, fantastic dialogue, fantastic characters, and these characters are brought so perfectly to life by the actors that Quentin Tarantino uses. I think Jamie Foxx in the lead role as Django is sort of subtle and just, he doesn't even have to say anything. I think that his sort of silence, his sort of broody silence, and his sort of initial tentative reluctance when he meets Dr. King Schultz, it's sort of perfectly portrayed. And I think that, you know, he puts Django through a real arc, and he sort of plays a character within a character, because Django has to go through so many different roles himself in order to just reach his bride, his wife. And I think Jamie Foxx just suited the role perfectly, and I think he sort of became this perfect hero. And yeah, he was just a perfect sort of badass character for a Quentin Tarantino film. And another character that I absolutely adore is Dr. King Schultz, played magnificently as always by Christoph Waltz. I don't think that, even if a movie is bad, which of course in my opinion this film is not, I think if Christoph Waltz is in a movie, you're guaranteed that even at least some of the film will be good, because Christoph himself is so brilliant. And it's no different in this role, which was written specifically for Christoph by Quentin Tarantino, apparently. And what's wonderful about Dr. King Schultz is that he's different to everybody else in the movie. He's not a sort of psychotic, racist, horrible person. He is really sweet and kind, and he has this wonderful friendship with Django, but he also is a low-key badass, which is really cool. He's sort of a very intriguing character, and I think like many people have just completely fallen in love with his character. I think he's probably one of the best characters that Quentin's ever created. But yeah, Christoph was perfectly suited for this role, of course, and the sort of intricacies of his acting again come to light in this film, and it's just a brilliant, brilliant role, and it's played perfectly. And of course, the villain in this film, the main villain, is brought to us in the form of Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think is brilliant 99% of the time, if not 100%. His portrayal of Calvin J. Candy is sort of fraught with this sort of sickly charm, which just descends into absolute madness, and you can tell throughout the performance that there's this underlying tendency for him to just go absolutely crazy. There's this just underlying madness within him, and I think Leo plays him absolutely brilliantly. It's actually really strange to see Leo as a villain. We don't see that very often in films, but I think even in this sort of role, which was quite different to what we usually see him as, he's usually the protagonist. The fact that Quentin put him in this role specifically is absolutely brilliant, because it shows Leo's sort of diversity as an actor, and I think he was fantastic. I think he was sort of the perfect sort of insidious villain, and yeah, fantastic. And there are other actors, of course, that always shine through in Quentin Tarantino films, regulars like Samuel L. Jackson, and Quentin Tarantino himself makes a couple of appearances, which is always fun to see. But I think the cast just bring this rather simple plot to life. Also, I think what's brilliant about this movie is that because of the themes, because of the historical setting, and because of the sort of historical horrors and abuse that are brought to light, with a story like this, some directors might hold back, but of course Quentin Tarantino doesn't, and I think that that's extremely important. it does make it uncomfortable in places to watch. You know, it's horrible to see these people, these poor people, being abused and oppressed and treated just absolutely so patronisingly and disgustingly by the characters like Calvin J. Candy. And I think it's testament to the acting of people like Leonardo DiCaprio that they are able to play these sort of historically placed villains so very well. But I also think it's sort of a very brave move by Tarantino. And I think it's incredibly important that even though this film is fiction, that this sort of portrayal is brought to light, because it's something that can't be ignored. And I think to go at it with such gusto and such guts is really, you know, is a credit to Tarantino. And yeah, I think it's just incredibly important to make films such as these, not to hold back. But aside from that, as I said, this film is full of fantastic, lovable characters, some absolutely detestable ones as well. And I think we cannot deny Quentin Tarantino's writing, his characters, his story, even though, as I said, the plot is kind of basic, the premise is basic for this film, but because of the characters that allow it to be fleshed out, we end up with a fantastic movie that's full of some amazing action scenes, as well as some, of course, witty and totally engrossing dialogue, which is always included in a Tarantino film. As well, I think this film has an amazing and sort of diverse soundtrack with music from all genres, particularly the initial main theme borrowed from the 1966 spaghetti western film Django. I thought that was very clever of Quentin Tarantino to include that because it actually goes incredibly well with this film. And of course, it's Quentin Tarantino, so it's filled with movie references because he's just one big movie nerd. But, you know, for this film, his choice of, or the choice of the music is incredibly clever, and it's just, you know, the music genres that are included are incredibly diverse, but they fit with the themes and they fit with the movie so well, and it just elevates the film even more. I don't really have anything bad to say about this film. I think it's another hit from Tarantino. I am a person who really enjoys this film. Some people might say that the sort of violence in this film, as with a lot of Tarantino movies, is particularly excessive. I know a lot of people that would think, you know, sort of what's the point in it? I don't mind it. I kind of just go with it, and I see it as part of the movie. But some people might not, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, I will of course warn you that this film is inclusive of nudity and heavy violence. But it's Tarantino, so you probably expect that walking into it. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this film. I absolutely love the performances. I loved everything about this film. I mean, I had to include it in my top 10 favourites just because it just, whenever I thought of my favourite movies, it just kept popping into my head, and I couldn't ignore that I had absolutely enjoyed this movie so much. I mean, it's one of those films where once I'd watched it, I wanted to watch it again straight after. And it's quite rare that I come across a movie like that, but I think Tarantino just captures your sort of interest so well with really detailed characters, and yeah, the performances, Fox, Waltz, DiCaprio, I mean, what more do you want from a movie? Yeah, I think it was fantastic. If I had to give it a rating out of 5 stars, I'd give it 5. I can't really fault it. You might, and that's your opinion. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I am always open to suggestions of films for me to review. If you want to leave a suggestion of a movie for me to review, just leave a comment below or message me on my Tumblr. They are always welcome. But I do hope you enjoyed this movie review, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye!